From music mogul to federal defendant, Sean Diddy Combs is now at the center of a trafficking and racketeering trial that could end his career and his freedom. Day one didn't just begin with shocking allegations. It erupted with a brutal video, emotional testimony, and a witness who says he saw it all. So what really happened inside that courtroom? And how did we get here? Buckle up. This isn't just a trial, it's the fall of a hip-hop empire. And it all started with one disturbing night. Day one of the trial kicked off with immediate tension. And not just because of the charges. Before any testimony was heard, the court had to finalize the jury, and that process sparked serious controversy. The defense accused prosecutors of discrimination after 7 out of 9 black jurors were struck from the pool. That raised eyebrows in the courtroom and could potentially resurface later in appeals. But the judge pushed forward. In a rare move for a federal trial, jury selection, opening statements, and 2 witnesses all happened in a single day. This wasn't just fast-paced, it was blistering. The jury was ultimately finalized, 12 people, made up of 8 men and 4 women, drawn from across Manhattan, the Bronx, and Westchester. Among them, a social worker, a lineman, a massage therapist, people with real-world experience who could bring strong opinions about abuse, power, and consent into the jury room. But while the defense was worried about the makeup of the jury, it was what the jury was about to see that sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Because the very first piece of evidence would haunt everyone in the room. Once the jury was seated, the prosecution wasted no time. Their opening statement didn't just outline a case. It pulled the jury straight into what they described as a decade-long nightmare. Prosecutors painted Sean Diddy Combs not as a music mogul, but as the mastermind of a shadowy criminal operation, one fueled by drugs, fear, manipulation, and unchecked power. They alleged that behind the private jets, platinum records, and red carpets was a much darker reality, one where Cassie Ventura was subjected to years of psychological control and exploitation. According to the prosecution, Diddy surrounded himself with a trusted inner circle that helped him orchestrate what they called freak-offs. Bizarre, high-end orgies where Cassie was allegedly forced to sleep with male escorts in luxury hotel rooms, sometimes while Diddy watched, filmed, or participated. And it didn't stop there. Prosecutors claimed Cassie was given drugs, isolated from loved ones, and psychologically broken down so she would submit. They said Diddy used everything, money, fame, threats, to maintain complete control. These weren't isolated incidents. According to them, this was a system, an enterprise, a form of trafficking masquerading as a relationship. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. But just when it seemed the prosecution had the upper hand, the defense rose with a very different version of events. And that's when things got even more complicated. After the prosecution painted a picture of a drug-fueled, coercive nightmare, Diddy's defense team stood up and completely flipped the narrative. Their strategy? Dismantle the image of Diddy as a criminal mastermind and instead reframe him as a man with an unconventional but consensual life. Lead defense attorney Tenny Garagos argued that what prosecutors called freak-offs were nothing more than private adult arrangements between consenting partners. She told the jury that Cassie wasn't a victim. She was a participant, someone who willingly engaged in the relationship, understood the rules, and even benefited from the lifestyle it afforded her. In their eyes, this wasn't a criminal enterprise. It was a relationship with blurred boundaries, maybe even toxic at times, but not illegal. They suggested that the prosecution was trying to police morality, not crime, and that the jury needed to separate emotional reactions from actual law. Garagos then dropped a bomb of her own. She claimed there were videos, recordings Diddy allegedly made during these encounters, which would prove that Cassie consented to what happened behind closed doors. According to the defense, these recordings would expose the case for what they said it really was: a money grab, sparked by a settled civil lawsuit and fueled by the promise of more headlines, more power, and more cash. But what the defense didn't seem to account for was the one video the jury had already seen and would never forget. The prosecution's most devastating evidence wasn't just mentioned, it was played. Right there in the courtroom, jurors were shown the uncut, unfiltered 2016 hotel surveillance video that launched the entire investigation. In the footage, Diddy can be seen violently kicking and dragging Cassie Ventura down a hallway at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. There were no flashing lights, no music, just silence and grainy footage that prosecutors said captured the truth. As the clip played, the room froze. Reporters say you could hear people in the gallery gasp. Cassie's face in the video is blurred, but her body language tells the story. Desperate, terrified, trying to escape. An off-duty LAPD officer who was working security that night testified that Cassie begged for help, pleading to retrieve her phone and purse. She repeatedly said she wanted to leave. But according to the officer, Diddy told her coldly, "You're not going to leave." It wasn't just a moment of violence, it was a moment of power. Prosecutors pointed to it as visual proof of Diddy's control, and they promised it was only the tip of the iceberg. But what made it even more damning? The fact that Diddy has already apologized for the video publicly. 2 days after CNN aired it, he posted an emotional video saying there were no excuses for his behavior and that he took full responsibility. So now, the jury doesn't just have Cassie's word, they have the tape. They have a witness, and they have his own admission. And yet, this was only the beginning of the nightmare described in court. Just when the courtroom began to recover from the impact of the surveillance video, the next witness took the stand, and his testimony pushed the story into even darker territory. A male escort, identified as a key prosecution witness, gave chilling first-hand details of what really happened inside one of Diddy's so-called freak-off nights. He described being invited to the Gary Park Hotel under the impression it would be a high-end private Sewell encounter. But what unfolded, he said, was something else entirely, something terrifying. According to his testimony, Cassie was not acting like a willing participant. She was silent, withdrawn, and clearly uncomfortable. At one point, the energy in the room shifted. The witness described how Diddy, apparently fueled by drugs and alcohol, suddenly became enraged. Without warning, he walked over to Cassie, grabbed her by her hair, and violently dragged her into the bedroom while she screamed and resisted. What had been pitched as an erotic gathering had spiraled into a display of dominance and physical abuse. The escort said he stood there, frozen, unsure whether to leave or stay. He claimed the rest of the entourage didn't even flinch, as if this was normal, routine. The horror wasn't just in the act itself, but in how numb everyone seemed to it. Prosecutors are using this moment to support their argument that Diddy wasn't just a participant in these nights. He was the orchestrator, the one who used fear and force to control everyone in the room, especially Cassie. And this witness, he's not done yet. Because when court resumes, he'll face the fire of cross-examination. And the defense is ready to tear him apart. After years of silence and one explosive lawsuit, Cassie Ventura is about to speak her truth under oath. Her upcoming testimony is expected to be the emotional centerpiece of the trial, and the courtroom is bracing for impact. Cassie won't just be recounting trauma, she'll be confronting the man she says tormented her for over a decade. And she'll be doing it while heavily pregnant. Now in her third trimester, Cassie will take the stand with frequent breaks for medical reasons, about every hour and a half. But that hasn't slowed the court's anticipation. Prosecutors say she'll walk jurors through everything: the abuse, the manipulation, the control, the freak-offs, the surveillance footage, and her eventual escape. This isn't just a celebrity ex-girlfriend testifying. It's a woman whose life, body, and autonomy were allegedly stripped away by one of the most powerful men in the music industry. And now she's reclaiming her voice in front of the world. Her husband, Alex Fine, was spotted outside the courthouse, standing firmly by her side. And her legal team has already made it clear. Cassie is prepared, determined, and ready to tell everything, no matter how graphic, how humiliating, or how painful. Prosecutors believe her testimony could make or break the case. But what happens when the woman Diddy allegedly tried to silence becomes the loudest voice in the courtroom? While prosecutors spoke and witnesses relived graphic emotional trauma, all eyes occasionally drifted toward the man at the center of it all, Sean Diddy Combs. And what they saw was a figure who looked very different from the glamorous icon the world once knew. Gone was the flashy mogul in designer sunglasses and diamond-encrusted chains. In his place sat a subdued man, dressed in what has now become his court uniform: khaki slacks, a collared shirt, and a plain pullover sweater. No gold, no arrogance, just a quiet, neutral presence. Observers noted that Diddy looked visibly older, his hair graying, his face weary. He's reportedly not allowed to dye his hair while in custody, and without the polish of his usual image, he appeared almost unrecognizable to fans. One journalist said he looked more like a grandfather than a hip-hop mogul. But it wasn't just his appearance, it was his demeanor. Throughout the day, Diddy remained almost eerily stoic. He showed no visible reaction to the gut-wrenching testimony. No grimaces, no eye rolls, just a fixed stare, locked onto the witnesses, the attorneys, and occasionally the jury. The only moments where any emotion cracked through were subtle. A nod to one of his attorneys, a glance toward his children, or a quiet moment when he drank water nervously as opening statements began. Was it composure, or was it calculation? Some courtroom experts believe Diddy's team is deliberately presenting him in this prep school look to distance him from the flashy, excessive image associated with hip-hop royalty. It could be a defense tactic, make the jury see him as a regular man, not a larger-than-life star. But others argue the mask may be slipping, because beneath that composed exterior lies a man facing decades behind bars, and he knows it. And with Cassie taking the stand next, that mask may not hold much longer. Just 1 year ago, Sean Diddy Combs was riding high at the peak of his legacy. He had just released his 5th studio album, stood beside New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and was handed the symbolic key to the city. Cameras flashed, crowds cheered, Diddy smiled, basking in praise as a respected icon of culture and success. But behind the scenes, something far darker was already unraveling. Just 2 months after that ceremony, in November 2023, the first crack appeared. Cassie Ventura filed a bombshell civil lawsuit, accusing Diddy of rape, abuse, and years of psychological torment. The case sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. But what came next was even more unexpected. The lawsuit was settled within 24 hours. No trial, no depositions, just silence and speculation. To the public, it looked like damage control. But to investigators, it was a red flag. That case set off a chain reaction. Other women came forward, new claims emerged. Suddenly, Diddy's past, once hidden beneath fame and fortune, was under the microscope. And then came the moment that changed everything. March 25, 2024. Federal agents raided Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami as part of a human trafficking investigation. Helicopters hovered, headlines exploded. The fall had officially begun. By September 2024, the man once crowned King of New York was arrested by federal agents. The charges? Racketeering, trafficking, conspiracy, transportation for prostitution. Prosecutors alleged that Diddy coerced, abused, and manipulated victims, not just to fulfill his own desires, but to protect his empire and preserve his image. And the key to the city? Now a painful reminder of how quickly power can crumble into disgrace. But the most damning evidence wasn't behind a locked door or sealed file, it was caught on camera. And it's that tape that has jurors already questioning everything. While testimony and storytelling are powerful in any trial, few pieces of evidence carry the same devastating weight as cold, hard video. And that's exactly what the prosecution has. The 2016 hotel surveillance footage showing Diddy assaulting Cassie Ventura is being described by legal experts as nothing short of a prosecutor's dream and a defense attorney's nightmare. Why? Because it's undeniable. No spin, no cross-examination trickery can erase what's already on tape. A violent outburst, a terrified woman trying to escape, and a powerful man refusing to let her go. According to courtroom insiders, the prosecution plans to walk the jury through the video frame by frame, with Cassie narrating exactly what happened that night. What was said, how she felt, what she feared. This moment isn't just about proving an assault, it's about showing a pattern of control, a moment that allegedly reflects the abuse she endured for years behind closed doors. And here's the kicker. Diddy already apologized. Days after the footage aired on CNN, he released a public statement admitting his behavior was inexcusable. No denial, no legal jargon, just a raw, direct apology. Prosecutors are expected to use that clip too, his own words, against him. But the defense is scrambling to neutralize the damage. Their argument? That the video, while disturbing, is not proof of a federal crime. There's no federal charge for assault or domestic violence. So they'll try to convince the jury that while the footage is hard to watch, it's not relevant to the specific charges of trafficking and racketeering. Legal analysts disagree. Many believe the video will act like a lens through which jurors view every piece of testimony, every escort, every threat, every allegation. All of it will now be compared to what they saw with their own eyes. Because once the jury sees you commit one act of violence, how easily can they believe you're capable of more? With just the first day of testimony wrapped, one thing is already clear. This trial is going to be a war of narratives, a war of image versus evidence. and a war where every witness, every photo, and every frame of video could tip the scales. One looming question hangs in the air. Will Diddy testify? Legal experts are divided. In his 2001 shooting trial, Diddy did take the stand. He told his story, maintained his innocence, and walked away acquitted. But that case was entirely different. The stakes were high then, but this is career-ending, legacy-destroying, potentially decades in prison serious. This time around, most attorneys believe Diddy won't risk it. The charges, racketeering, trafficking, and conspiracy, are complex, layered, and emotionally charged. One slip, one inconsistency, one wrong word under cross-examination could be devastating. Instead, his defense is expected to focus on creating reasonable doubt through cross-examination, attacking witness credibility, and reframing the salacious stories as consensual adult behavior. But here's the problem. Diddy isn't just fighting a courtroom battle, he's fighting public opinion. And so far, that public is watching every moment unfold, and they're not looking away. The defense says he's innocent. The prosecution says he ran an empire of abuse. And in the end, it won't be headlines that decide his fate. It'll be 12 strangers, locked in a room, deciding if the king of bad boy goes down in flames. And that's just day one. If this is how it started, just imagine what's coming next. Cassie Ventura is about to take the stand, the prosecution is just warming up, and Diddy's entire empire hangs in the balance. Will the jury believe the witnesses? Will the defense find cracks in their stories? And most importantly, what other secrets are still hiding in the shadows? You won't want to miss what happens next. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our full coverage of every twist, every bombshell, and every jaw-dropping moment in the Diddy trial. This is more than a celebrity scandal. This is a reckoning.